The grand chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the emergency beacon pierced through the usual diplomatic chatter. Ambassador Zektar's four eyes widened in disbelief as the holographic display materialized before the assembled delegates. The image showed something that should have been impossible, a massive human fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. "Impossible," whispered the Velkin representative, her crystalline form shimmering with anxiety. The humans were quarantined. The barrier systems were supposed to hold for another 1,000 cycles. Council Prime Yethmos stood slowly, his ancient form trembling not from age but from the implications of what they were witnessing. The humans had been contained in their small corner of the galaxy for over 3 centuries, ever since their first violent contact with the Rigelian mining consortium. The galaxy had learned quickly that these bipedal creatures were unlike anything they had encountered before. The hologram shifted, revealing the true scope of the human fleet. Ships of impossible design stretched across space, some sleek and predatory, others massive and fortress-like. But what caught everyone's attention was their number. The scanners counted over 50,000 vessels, each one radiating energy signatures that made the Council's finest warships look like children's toys. "How many of them are there?" asked the Centaurian delegate, his voice barely audible through his translation matrix. The answer came from the ship manifest data streaming across their displays. Each vessel carried thousands of humans, and the larger ships showed population counts that defied logic. The total number was staggering, over 200 million humans aboard the fleet. Ambassador Zektar remembered the old stories, the warnings passed down from those who had survived first contact with humanity. The stories spoke of creatures who fought not for territory or resources, but for concepts they called freedom and justice. They were said to be utterly without fear, capable of violence that shocked even the most warlike species in the galaxy. The communication array crackled to life, and a human voice filled the chamber. It was calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. "Galactic Council, this is Fleet Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Liberation Force. We have come to collect our people." The silence that followed was deafening. Several delegates began frantically checking their records, searching for any reference to humans held within Council territory. But Yethmos knew exactly what they wanted, and the knowledge filled him with dread. 3 years ago, the Council had made what seemed like a routine decision. A human exploration vessel had been captured in the neutral zone, its crew taken for diplomatic processing, a polite term for interrogation and study. The 57 humans aboard had been distributed among various Council research facilities, their fate considered inconsequential. "Admiral Chun," Yethmos spoke into the communication array, his voice struggling to remain steady. "We are not aware of any humans within our territory. Perhaps there has been some misunderstanding." The response was immediate and chilling. "Council Prime, we have precise locations for all 57 of our citizens. We know exactly where they are, and we know exactly what has been done to them." The holographic display updated again, showing detailed layouts of Council research facilities across 16 different worlds. The humans had somehow gathered intelligence that should have been impossible to obtain. They knew guard rotations, security protocols, even the names of individual researchers. "You have 72 hours, Admiral Chun continued, to release all human prisoners and deliver them to the neutral zone coordinates we are transmitting. Any harm that comes to our people will result in immediate and total retaliation." The Altarian delegate, known for his military background, scoffed audibly. "Admiral, you are outnumbered 10,000 to 1. The Council fleet comprises over 500 million vessels. Your threats are meaningless." The human's laughter was soft, but somehow more threatening than any war cry. "Delegate Morthak, your intelligence reports are outdated. We are not the same species you quarantined 3 centuries ago." The main display shifted once more, and what it showed made several delegates physically recoil. Human ships were deploying weapons systems that defied conventional understanding. Energy signatures spiked beyond anything in the Council's databases. Some vessels began reshaping themselves, their hulls flowing like liquid metal into new configurations. "We have spent 300 years preparing for this moment," Admiral Chen's voice continued. "We have evolved beyond your comprehension. We have technologies that would terrify your greatest scientists. And we have a singular focus that your diverse coalition cannot match. The smallest human vessel, no larger than a Council patrol ship, suddenly accelerated toward the Council's outer perimeter. In seconds, it passed through shields that should have been impenetrable, completely ignoring defensive systems that had never failed before. It stopped just short of the Council's flagship, holding position as if daring them to respond. That was a demonstration, the Admiral explained calmly. Our patience has limits, and those limits have been reached. 71 hours and 58 minutes remain. As the transmission ended, the chamber erupted in panicked discussions. But Yethmos remained silent, staring at the human fleet with growing horror. He understood now what they were facing. This wasn't an invasion. It was an execution waiting to happen. Council Prime Yethmos convened an emergency session in the highest security chamber available. The assembled delegates represented over 800 species, the most diverse gathering the galaxy had ever seen. Yet despite their combined knowledge and military might, fear hung in the air like a poisonous gas. The humans cannot be reasoned with, reported General Crixanael of the Thokarian Empire, his reptilian features twisted with frustration. We've been monitoring their communications, and they speak only of retrieval and destruction. There is no discussion of negotiation or compromise. The holographic tactical display showed the human fleet maintaining perfect formation at the edge of Council space. What disturbed the military advisors most was their discipline. Not a single ship had moved from its assigned position in over 14 hours. This wasn't the behavior of an emotional rescue mission. It was the patience of professional executioners. Ambassador Melandra of the Crystalline Collective spoke with a voice like chiming bells. Perhaps we could offer compensation? Humans value material wealth, correct? We could provide them with rare elements, advanced technology. You don't understand, interrupted Dr. Vashram, the Council's leading xenobiologist. I've spent decades studying the quarantine zone reports. Humans don't think like us. They don't calculate acceptable losses or weigh cost versus benefit when it comes to their own kind. Every human is considered irreplaceable. The elderly scientist activated his personal display, showing brain scan comparisons between humans and other species. Look at their neural patterns. The areas responsible for pack bonding and protective instincts are overdeveloped beyond any normal evolutionary pattern. They've somehow weaponized their own empathy. General Thorvac of the Stellar Defense Force stood abruptly, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Then, we fight them. Our combined fleets outnumber them significantly. Even with their technological advantages, they cannot overcome raw numbers. Can't they? Dr. Vashram pulled up historical data from the first human contact. 3 centuries ago, a single human colony ship fought off an entire Rigelian battle group. 50,000 humans against 2 million Rigelians. The humans won. The chamber fell silent as the doctor continued. But that's not the worst part. According to the surviving Rigelian reports, the humans weren't trying to win. They were buying time for their civilians to escape. Imagine what they can do when they're actually trying to destroy something. Council Prime Yethmos accessed the classified files that only he was authorized to view. The truth was worse than anyone in the chamber suspected. The 57 captured humans hadn't been simple explorers. They had been a deep reconnaissance team, gathering intelligence on Council military capabilities and infrastructure. How long until our prisoners can be retrieved? He asked the facility commanders through encrypted channels. The responses were uniformly troubling. The humans were held in maximum security installations across 16 worlds, each facility requiring days of preparation for prisoner transfer. Several facilities reported that their human subjects were in poor condition due to extensive medical experimentation. Council Prime, Admiral Yethmos' aide whispered urgently, "We're receiving reports from border stations. The human fleet is launching smaller vessels." The tactical display updated to show thousands of tiny craft departing from the main human ships. These scout vessels moved with impossible speed, spreading throughout the galaxy in what appeared to be a comprehensive surveillance pattern. "They're mapping our entire defense network," General Thorvac observed grimly. In real time, the Velkin representative's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns. "How is this possible? Our communication networks use quantum encryption. Our military frequencies are heavily shielded. Dr. Vashram studied the scout ship movement patterns with growing alarm. They're not intercepting our communications. They're conducting direct reconnaissance of every military installation within a 50 light-year radius. Look at their flight paths. They know exactly where everything is. The implications were staggering. The human fleet had intelligence capabilities that made the Council's most advanced spy networks look primitive. Every secret base, every hidden weapon depot, every classified research facility was being cataloged with surgical precision. Incoming transmission from the human fleet, announced the communications officer. Admiral Chen's voice filled the chamber once again, but this time she wasn't alone. The display showed the bridge of her flagship, revealing humans working at stations that defied easy categorization. Their technology seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements in ways that hurt to look at directly. Council Prime, our reconnaissance confirms what we suspected. You are currently holding our people in facilities designed for biological experimentation. 17 of our citizens show evidence of surgical modification without consent. 8 others display symptoms of psychological torture. The accusations hung in the air like a death sentence. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably, knowing their own species' involvement in the research programs. Admiral Chun, Yethmos responded carefully. These individuals were processed according to standard protocols for unknown life forms. No intentional harm was meant. The human admiral's expression didn't change, but every other human visible on the bridge turned to look directly at the camera. Their eyes held a cold fury that made the Council delegates physically recoil. Council Prime, you have just confirmed that you consider our people to be experimental subjects rather than sentient beings. This eliminates any possibility of peaceful resolution. The tactical display showed the human fleet beginning to move. Their formations shifted into attack patterns that the Council's military advisors had never seen before. Ships began linking together with energy conduits, creating massive combined weapons systems. You now have 60 hours to comply with our original demand. Any further deterioration in our people's condition will result in the immediate implementation of Protocol Omega. What is Protocol Omega? General Thorvac demanded. Admiral Chen smiled, and the expression was more terrifying than any war cry. The complete and total elimination of the Galactic Council as a governing body. The destruction of every Council military asset. The occupation of your core worlds until our people are returned. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The human fleet continued its advance, moving with purpose that spoke of years of careful planning. Dr. Vashram spoke into the quiet, his voice barely above a whisper. They're not bluffing. Humans never bluff about protecting their own. We've made the worst possible enemy. Through the chamber's massive windows, the first human ships could be seen approaching Council space proper. They moved like hunters who had finally found their prey. The first shots were fired not by the human fleet, but by the panicked garrison commander of Outpost Cagemar. A junior officer, overwhelmed by the sight of human scout ships approaching his position, activated the automated defense grid without authorization. Plasma cannons and missile batteries opened fire on 3 small human reconnaissance vessels. The human ships didn't even attempt to evade. The weapons fire simply passed through them as if they weren't there. Report. Council Prime Yethmos demanded, watching the tactical feed from the Council Command Center. Direct hits confirmed on all 3 targets. The weapons officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. No damage detected. Sir, our sensors are reading the human vessels as not entirely present in normal space. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the communication channel before anyone could respond. Council Prime, your forces have just committed an act of war against vessels operating under diplomatic immunity. This accelerates our timeline considerably. The main tactical display lit up with new contacts. Human ships that had been maintaining position at the galaxy's edge were now moving inward at velocities that should have been impossible. But more disturbing than their speed was their method of travel. They seemed to exist partially outside normal space, phasing in and out of reality at will. Dr. Vashram watched the readings with growing horror. They're using dimensional manipulation technology. They're not just faster than us. They're operating by completely different physical laws. The first human ship entered Council core space and immediately demonstrated the futility of conventional resistance. The massive battleship Retribution materialized directly in the middle of the Altarian home fleet, appearing between their ships as if it had always been there. The Altarian commander ordered immediate fire, but the human ship simply absorbed every shot without any visible effect. Then, it returned fire. The weapon that lanced out from the human battleship wasn't energy or projectiles. It was something that made space itself scream. The Altarian flagship, a massive dreadnought that had never been defeated in 300 years of warfare, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, it was deleted from reality as if it had never been built. Impossible, whispered General Thorvac, staring at the sensor readings. That ship contained 40,000 crew members. Where did they go? The answer came from the human admiral. They have been relocated to a pocket dimension where they will remain safely imprisoned until this conflict ends. We do not kill unless killing becomes necessary. But the demonstration continued. The human ship Retribution turned toward the Altarian fleet's remaining vessels and broadcasted a simple message: surrender immediately or be removed from the battlefield. The Altarian admiral, a proud warrior who had never retreated from any fight, took one look at where his flagship used to be and ordered his entire fleet to stand down. Similar scenes played out across 17 different star systems as human ships appeared in the middle of Council defensive positions. Each encounter followed the same pattern: a demonstration of impossible technology, an offer to surrender, and the complete capitulation of Council forces who realized they were fighting something beyond their understanding. How many casualties? Yethmos asked his military advisors. None, General Thorvac replied, his voice filled with disbelief. 0 deaths reported from any engagement. The humans are somehow removing entire fleets from battle without killing anyone. The tactical situation was becoming clear. The human fleet wasn't conquering territory. They were systematically dismantling the Council's ability to wage war while preserving every life possible. It was a level of precision and restraint that spoke of technological capabilities beyond imagination. Incoming transmission from Facility Jexera, announced the communications officer. The holographic display showed one of the research stations where human prisoners were held. The facility commander, a nervous hegemony scientist named Dr. Veltash, appeared on screen with obvious terror in his multiple eyes. Council Prime, there are human ships surrounding our facility. They're not attacking, but they're demanding immediate access to the detention levels. How many ships? Yethmos asked. Sir, our sensors detect over 3,000 vessels in close orbit. Each one is the size of a capital ship. They appeared simultaneously without any warning. The scale was overwhelming. The humans had deployed more firepower around a single research facility than most species possessed in their entire space navy. But still they weren't attacking, they were waiting. Dr. Veltash, what is the current status of your human subjects? The scientist's hesitation was telling. Sir, they are mostly intact. We have been following standard xenobiological research protocols. Some modifications were necessary for proper study. The transmission cut off abruptly as the facility's power grid went dark. When it resumed, the scene had changed completely. Human soldiers in armor that seemed to bend light around them were visible in the facility's corridors, moving with purpose toward the detention areas. How did they get inside? General Thorvac demanded. That facility has 16 levels of security. The answer became apparent as they watched the human soldiers simply walk through closed blast doors as if they were made of mist. Their technology allowed them to exist partially outside normal matter, making conventional barriers useless. Dr. Vashram studied the soldiers' movement patterns with scientific fascination despite his terror. They're not following our understanding of physics at all. Look at how they move. They're shifting between dimensions to bypass physical obstacles. The feed showed human soldiers reaching the detention level and beginning their rescue operation. What they found there sent shock waves through the council chamber. The human prisoners were barely recognizable as the same species that had arrived in the fleet above. Medical experimentation had left them weak, scarred, and traumatized. One of the rescued humans looked directly at the security camera, and the council delegates could see 3 centuries of evolution in his eyes. Despite his condition, there was no fear there, only a burning certainty that justice was coming. The human soldiers completed their rescue operation in minutes, caring for their injured comrades with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with their terrifying capabilities. As they prepared to leave the facility, one soldier placed a small device on the central computer core. Facility Jexera, Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the research station's communication system. You have 30 seconds to evacuate all personnel. This installation will be permanently shut down. The research facility, a massive complex that had taken decades to construct, simply folded in on itself and vanished. Not destroyed, removed from existence as if it had never been there. Across the galaxy, similar operations were taking place at every location where humans were held. The message was becoming clear. The human fleet possessed technology that made resistance not just futile, but completely irrelevant. Council Prime, Admiral Chen's voice filled the chamber once more. 15 of our people have been recovered. 42 remain in your custody. You have 36 hours remaining. Council Prime Yethmos convened an emergency session with only his most trusted advisors present. The Grand Chamber had been abandoned in favor of a heavily shielded bunker deep beneath the Council's homeworld. Fear had finally overcome political posturing. We need to understand what we're really facing, Yethmos said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Dr. Vashram, your complete assessment. The xenobiologist activated a secure holographic display showing 3 centuries of data on human development. Council Prime, we made a fundamental error when we quarantined humanity. We assumed that isolation would limit their growth. Instead, it forced them to evolve in ways we never anticipated. The display showed human colony ships from 300 years ago, crude, barely space-worthy vessels powered by primitive fusion drives. Then, it shifted to images of the current human fleet, vessels that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. They didn't just advance technologically, Dr. Vashram continued. They underwent directed evolution. Look at these genetic scans from the rescued prisoners. Every human in that fleet has been biologically enhanced for space travel, combat efficiency, and collective thinking. General Thorvax studied the data with growing alarm. Are you saying they turned themselves into weapons? Worse, they turned themselves into something completely beyond our understanding. These aren't the same humans we quarantined. There's something new. The secure communication system chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Zekera, commanding the Council's last remaining fleet. His transmission was encrypted with the highest security protocols available. Council Prime, my fleet has been engaged by human forces in the Kepler sector. We lost 37 ships in the first exchange. Lost how? Yethmos demanded. Destroyed. No, sir. They were translated. The human vessels used some kind of spatial manipulation to remove our ships from normal space. My crews are alive, but trapped in what they describe as a gray void. The humans are holding them in suspended animation. The implications were staggering. The human fleet was waging war without killing, capturing entire crews, and preserving their lives even while dismantling the Council's military power. It was a level of technological supremacy that made resistance pointless. Admiral, pull back your remaining forces. Do not engage the human fleet under any circumstances. Sir, with respect, I don't think we have a choice. The human ships are moving toward the core worlds. Their advance cannot be stopped by conventional means. Dr. Vashram interrupted the conversation with urgency. Council Prime, we're receiving reports from the research facilities. The humans are conducting surgical strikes on every installation holding their people. But they're doing something else. They're downloading our entire database of research conducted on their species. The security implications were overwhelming. Every weakness the Council had discovered about humanity, every biological vulnerability they had cataloged, was now in human hands. But, more importantly, the humans would know exactly what had been done to their captured people. How extensive was the research? Yethmos asked, though he dreaded the answer. Complete biological analysis, psychological profiling, neural mapping, genetic modification experiments. Dr. Vashram's voice trailed off as he realized what they were facing. Council Prime, they know everything we did. Every procedure, every test, every violation of their people's dignity. The weight of 3 centuries of scientific arrogance crashed down on the assembled council members. They had treated the captured humans as laboratory subjects, never considering that those subjects belonged to a species capable of this level of retaliation. The main display activated without warning, showing Admiral Chen standing on what appeared to be the bridge of her flagship. But the background had changed. The human ship was now clearly visible through the Council homeworld's atmosphere, having somehow penetrated every defensive system without triggering a single alarm. Council Prime, Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. We have completed our initial assessment of your facilities. What we found there ensures that negotiation is no longer possible. The display shifted to show medical records from the human prisoners. The extent of the experimentation was laid bare: surgical modifications, neural implants, genetic alterations, psychological conditioning. Each entry in the database represented a violation of basic dignity that the humans would never forgive. 26 hours remain for the return of our people, Admiral Chen continued. But circumstances have changed. We no longer seek simple retrieval. We seek justice. Yethmos felt his ancient heart skip a beat. Admiral, what does that mean? It means that when this is over, the Galactic Council will no longer exist as a governing body. Your species will be placed under human protection until you can demonstrate that you understand the basic rights of sentient beings. The chamber erupted in protest from the assembled delegates, but Admiral Chun continued speaking over their objections. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. Your military has been neutralized. Your communications networks are under our control. Your governments are operating at our discretion. General Thorvac attempted one final show of defiance. You cannot govern 800 species with a single fleet, no matter how advanced your technology. Admiral Chen's smile was cold and patient. General, you still don't understand what you're facing. Show them. The display changed to show the human fleet from a new perspective. What the Council had thought was 50,000 ships was revealed to be a massive construction network. The human vessels were linked together by energy conduits and dimensional bridges, creating a single megastructure the size of a small moon. This is not a fleet, Admiral Chen explained. This is a mobile civilization. 200 million humans working as a single organism with one shared purpose. We have been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries, and we are just getting started. Dr. Vashram stared at the readings in disbelief. The energy output alone, they could reshape entire solar systems. The Galactic Council took 57 of our people, Admiral Chen continued. In response, we have mobilized our entire species. Every human in the galaxy is now dedicated to ensuring that what was done to our people never happens to anyone again. The true scope of human civilization was becoming apparent. They hadn't remained stagnant during their quarantine. They had grown into something that made the entire Galactic Council look like a minor regional government. Your research facilities have shown us the thinking that governs this galaxy, Admiral Chen said, her voice filled with quiet determination. Sentient beings treated as resources. Dignity sacrificed for scientific curiosity. Rights ignored in favor of convenience. The human admiral looked directly at the camera, and her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. We have come to change that. Permanently. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence. Outside the bunker, the first human ships were beginning to land on the homeworld's surface, beginning what would be the most thorough reformation in galactic history. The final rescue operation took place on Kepler Station, the Council's most secure research facility. Hidden in the depths of a dying star's corona, the station had been considered impossible to assault. The humans arrived anyway. Council Prime Yethmos watched the operation unfold from his bunker, knowing that these were the last hours of the Galactic Council as it had existed for millennia. After 3 years of intensive study, these 17 individuals barely resembled their original species. Neural modifications had been tested on them, their genetics altered, their minds probed, and dissected by the galaxy's finest scientists. Admiral Chen's voice filled the communication channel one final time. Council Prime, we have located our final people. What has been done to them represents the absolute worst of your civilization's treatment of other sentient beings. The screen shifted to show human soldiers moving through Kepler Station. Their rescue operation was conducted with surgical precision, but there was something different about these humans. They moved with a cold purpose that spoke of barely contained fury. When they reached the detention wing, the rescued humans told a story that would echo through galactic history. Years of medical experimentation, psychological conditioning, attempts to break their minds and remake them as subjects for study. The humans had endured it all while maintaining their core identity, knowing that rescue would eventually come. Our people have shown remarkable resilience, Admiral Chun observed, watching as her soldiers carefully extracted the tortured prisoners. They survived because they knew their entire species would come for them. They knew that no price was too high to pay for their freedom. The last human was carried from Kepler Station on a medical stretcher, barely conscious but still alive. As the rescue ships departed, the massive research facility simply ceased to exist, deleted from reality as completely as if it had never been built. With all 57 humans recovered, the galaxy expected the human fleet to withdraw. Instead, they began the largest deployment in recorded history. Human ships appeared in orbit around every inhabited world in Council space, not as conquerors, but as administrators. The message was broadcast simultaneously to every government, every military installation, every civilian population center in the galaxy. Citizens of the Galactic Council, Admiral Chin's voice reached billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Your governments have demonstrated a fundamental disregard for the basic rights of sentient beings. Effective immediately, all Council authority is suspended pending a complete reformation of galactic governance. The transformation began immediately. Human administrators, backed by technology that made resistance impossible, began implementing changes that would have taken decades to negotiate through normal diplomatic channels. Species that had been enslaved were freed within hours. Research facilities conducting unethical experiments were shut down permanently. Military forces that had been used to oppress civilian populations were disbanded and their equipment confiscated. But the humans didn't govern through force alone. They governed through demonstration. Every freed slave was provided with resources and education. Every disbanded military was offered retraining in peaceful occupations. Every shuttered research facility was replaced with institutions dedicated to helping rather than exploiting. Dr. Vashram, watching from the bunker as human ships landed on his homeworld, realized what they were witnessing. They're not conquering us. They're teaching us. The human approach was unlike anything in galactic history. Rather than simply imposing their will, they were systematically demonstrating better ways to organize society. Planets that had been strip-mined for resources were restored using human technology. Species that had been at war for centuries found themselves working together on human-sponsored reconstruction projects. How are they doing this? Yethmos asked, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. The answer came from unexpected sources. Human civilians, not soldiers, were leading most of the reforms. Teachers, doctors, engineers, and social workers had been part of the fleet all along. The 200 million humans weren't just a military force. They were an entire civilization ready to rebuild the galaxy according to better principles. Years passed. The former Council worlds adapted to human administration with surprising speed. Crime rates plummeted. Economic inequality decreased dramatically. Scientific research, now conducted with proper ethical oversight, advanced faster than ever before. The humans gradually reduced their direct involvement, instead training local governments to maintain the new standards. But they never left entirely. Human observers remained on every world, ensuring that the rights of all sentient beings were respected. Council Prime Yethmos, now serving as a regional administrator under human oversight, reflected on the transformation during a quarterly review meeting. The humans had kept their word. They had changed everything. The old council saw sentient beings as resources to be managed. He reported to his human supervisor, a patient woman named Director Martinez who had spent decades learning the complex cultural dynamics of his species. We never understood that dignity was more important than efficiency. Director Martinez nodded thoughtfully. Understanding takes time. The important thing is that you're willing to learn. The final irony wasn't lost on anyone involved. The humans had been quarantined because they were considered too dangerous to join galactic civilization. Now they had become galactic civilization, providing the moral framework that held hundreds of species together. Admiral Chun, now serving as the coordinator of galactic affairs, addressed the Reformed Council on the 5th anniversary of the liberation. The chamber looked much the same, but the delegates represented a very different kind of governance. 5 years ago, 57 humans were taken from their ship and subjected to treatment that violated every principle of sentient dignity, she began. Today, those same humans serve as advisors to the species that once held them prisoner. They chose forgiveness over revenge because they understood that hatred perpetuates itself. The rescued humans, now fully recovered and serving in various administrative roles, had become symbols of the transformation. They worked alongside their former captors, building a galaxy where what had been done to them could never happen again. "We came seeking justice," Admiral Chun concluded, "and found that justice meant creating a better universe for everyone. That work continues, and it will continue as long as sentient beings require protection." The chamber erupted in applause from delegates representing hundreds of species. They had learned, finally, what the humans had tried to teach the galaxy for 3 centuries, that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the commitment to protect. Outside the chamber windows, human ships could still be seen in orbit, patient guardians ensuring that the galaxy's hard-won peace would endure. They would remain as long as they were needed, and perhaps longer still.